Наско, здравей! Аз съм на другия канал и не те чух. Мирослава ми каза, че си тук. Много се радвам отново да сме заедно.
U redu, Maja, mislim da je sad pravo vreme da krenemo.
Okay, I believe this is the right time to start. Almost 15 minutes have passed since we all have logged in. There are still some colleagues joining, but I believe we can start. So we will start with some initial technical information and then a short introduction from myself, followed by Mr. Sinisha, who will address all of us. But we will start with Maya. Maya, over to you. Good morning, good morning. I am very pleased to see so many of you, to see all of the partners represented. All of us are present, complying with our obligations. So, we are slowly, successfully approaching the end. We are still missing our colleagues from Montenegro, whereas our colleagues from Spain will join us in the second part of the meeting. And that's all from myself. So now let me hand over the mic to Lazar and then to Sinisha. Thank you, Maya. Thank you for the information and for the welcome. I would like to welcome all of the colleagues from Poland, Croatia, Slovakia, and Bulgaria. As Maya has said, we are still awaiting our colleagues from Montenegro and our colleagues from Spain who will join us later. I would like to give an especially warm welcome to our leaders, our colleagues from the trade union in Croatia, especially Sinisha. Good morning, Sinisha. Good morning to all of you. We are very happy that the spring has already come. I am certain it's also the case in Croatia. I hope the weather is getting better and better. I can say that the weather isn't that good in my case, but we are in a good mood. That's the most important, and we will be very productive. Sinisha, over to you. Well, thank you, Lazar. I would like to welcome all of you. Welcome, Maya, Lazar, colleagues from Poland, Croatia, Slovakia, as Bulgaria, as well as the missing colleagues from Spain and Montenegro. We are still missing our EU representative. I am glad that our project is slowly coming to an end. And obviously, it would be nice for us to have a chance to meet in person. But, you know, the effects of the pandemic keep lingering. And I believe that we will still have a chance to meet each other. The key topic of our meeting is the transition. It all started with the digital transition. It enabled us to improve the work conditions, especially automation has made our work easier. But this transition doesn't proceed in the same way for the rich and for the poor. The rich are getting richer, they keep developing green technologies, and they impose them on less developed countries who need to deal with more difficulties in their implementation. We have carried out research in the 7 countries in our project. We launched an internet platform where you could learn some things. We have also produced an internet publication, which is of good quality and which puts together all of the information about the key processes, European directives, resolutions applicable to the green transition. But I still fear that given the current geopolitical situation, the green transition will slow down. I believe this is what will happen. But I think that we have done a lot of good work. We need to promote this project among our contacts in our network and look for the ways to implement Industry 5.0 and green technologies. I know that some green technologies are not as green as they have seemed to be, that they produce waste that's difficult to recycle. Well, that's only some introductory remarks from myself. I hope we will have a chance to have a discussion. Well, today we have a wonderful weather in Zagreb. Just a few days ago, we had a wave of frost, but fortunately, the beautiful weather is back. Probably between 11 and 12, I will be forced to leave you for a moment, but I will be back. Sinisha, thank you very much. Oh, let me add one more thing. If you see me looking the other way, that's because I have two computers. I have a laptop and a different screen. I see you, but this is the way I need to sit in order to follow you. Okay, yes. You are following our meeting. Yes, I am participating attentively in our meeting. Maya and you have noted that our project is coming to an end. On the one hand, we have some outcomes, good outcomes. This is my view that the outcomes are great. And I believe that we have achieved what we have set out to achieve. You have mentioned the e-learning platform as well as the publication that we have prepared. These are good materials, useful to trade union members, but also to other people, maybe people from the academia, if somebody is interested in such matters and would like to go deeper and understand this process of twin transition, digital and green transition a little bit better. They will be useful for them. They can understand the way in which these processes are intertwined and where they go their separate ways. We have done a lot of good work, and it's a good reason for us to move ahead with the next project and go even deeper and dive into the effects of the processes that we have been discussing. On the other hand, you have also mentioned the fact that substantially the process of green transition itself has stopped in a way. I do agree, taking into account what is happening globally. Okay, I will speak in Croatian, but my presentation is in English, so it's a combination of the two. So I decided today to practice my Croatian and my Montenegrin. In a few days, I will speak Croatian at a conference. So today you will be my, so to speak, training grounds. Because I need to practice my Croatian. So I will not speak throughout the first session, the entire morning. But I also feel sorry for the fact that we have not managed to meet in person in Krakow or somewhere else. But
smislu da ostvarimo
Maybe
neposredni kontakt
it's better this way.
da razmenimo možda i malo više nego što nam ove digitalne platforme
Even though
dozvoljavaju,
it's always better
poruke,
to establish a humane personal network contact if you can see the other person face to face.
sastanak i online platforme koje nam
Nevertheless,
da ipak vrlo usko
online meetings are a good tool. They enable us to work together, to work effectively, even though we cannot see each other in person. But I do hope that we will have a chance to work in further projects, that we'll have a chance to meet in person and socialize a little bit. Okay, going back to our agenda for today. I wanted to share with you our plans. Okay, so now let us have a look at our agenda. I hope all of you can see it.
Okay, vidi se, jel tako?
Okay, yes, you can see my screen, that's perfect. Right. So the first part. First, we will discuss our national reports, but we will focus on some key conclusions drawn in our project on the basis of the national reports. And then we will try to move on to the improvement of collaboration between social partners. And here, our aim will be the improvement of active participation in the twin transition. Then a short break. And after the break, we will have an open discussion on the practical recommendations for the implementation of the twin transition. So we will need to put our experience and knowledge in practice across many different areas in the field of social dialogue, as well as decision making. So people who participate in the social dialogue at the national level and participate in our project will have a chance to implement what they have learned. Okay, so we have planned to launch a meeting at 10. We are flexible. This is not a training session. It's more of a meeting dedicated to the discussion on further steps, on the next actions to take. So we will be very flexible. We may even close our meeting a little bit earlier. The more important thing for us is the right quality of our discussion and not the exact length. So to kick off, I have prepared a presentation. It is just a collection of prompts regarding our discussion today. So I wanted you to feel encouraged to take the floor, and I want us to discuss this matter. So I don't want to be the one to speak, forcing you to listen. The idea is for us to engage in a discussion together. So what's the purpose of the project? So we wanted to provide adequate support for twin transition. The point was to support social partners in the context of this twin transition, involving many different aspects of the economy. It's not easy. During our meetings, And during the national meetings, you could see that it's a process that requires a lot of good faith, but also a lot of knowledge. And we need to support all the social partners to ensure the twin transition is carried out in a transparent manner. And all the social partners should actually be involved in the process of twin transition. Twin transition, let me explain, it's the digital transition and the green transition carried out by the European Union that affects the labor market, and actually it affects everything that is happening right now in Europe. And also, based on that, we can say that the world of labor is changing dramatically. And over the next few years, it's going to change even more. So, in 5 or 8 years of time, the world of labor will look nothing as the world today in 2025. And we will all feel the effects of this. And we can see it in Europe, but also we can see it in all parts of the world. Some processes have slowed down, whereas others have accelerated. So, the general conclusion is that the world of labor has transformed tremendously. The quotation I chose today for an inspiration is as follows: you cannot solve a problem at the same level at which the problem was created. It was said by Albert Einstein, and he said it, of course, in the context of mathematics and physics, but it can be applied universally. We all know that when an issue arises, it has to be solved at a different level. And let's take the example of the twin transition. So some problems emerge. For example, jobs are going to disappear. And we want to solve the issue, and we want to minimize the impact of, for example, launching artificial intelligence and digital tools. And also, let's think about the ways we can ensure that green transition is actually green. We want to not only manufacture green goods, but we want our workplaces to be green and environmentally friendly as well. And also, we want to feel good. We want to ensure the mental and physical well-being of employees. That should be part of the green transition as well. So whenever an issue emerges, it requires resolution at a different level from the one in which it emerged. And everyone should be actively involved in this process. And how can we do that? One way of doing it is employee participation. For example, trade unions should be involved in the decision-making process. But also they can be involved at the national level, at the company level, but also at the level of various economic and social councils. But the representatives could also be involved at the EU level. We want the trade unions to be part of the solution. We want them to shape the solutions for the future. And we want to achieve this win-win situation, which is beneficial for all. And only this will ensure that transition is just. So I have asked a number of questions for you, and now the time has come for you to join the discussion. You have prepared your national reports, and a lot of economic questions have arisen. But also, you have made quite interesting observations in your reports.
To highlight the economic impact of the twin transition. So this transition definitely transforms our economy. And also the atmosphere, the economic way of manufacturing goods is also changing. We can see changes happening in the industry which are quite sudden and dramatic. And this is one of the impacts of the twin transition. And these changes pose a threat or a challenge to our sector. And the twin transition affects the processes happening in the industry and in the various branches of the industry. They transform industry, but also the companies themselves also transform their operations. And it comes with a challenge. The very nature of our industry is changing. We have adopted certain ways of manufacturing things, and right now we need to adopt new ways. The processes are completely different to what is known to us. So a new industrial revolution is accelerating right now. I also think that some processes have been stopped intentionally because they impacted some areas and the solutions couldn't be found by the government or by the workers themselves. Even the authorities are not able to fully control all the processes happening right now. Of course, it comes with a lot of challenges, but also it creates new opportunities. It is always important from each angle you observe certain processes. It also depends on your worldview. The digital transition and the artificial intelligence give the opportunity to some of the branches of the industry to grow, to develop. They also make it possible to do the job easier. They make the work more precise, more effective, also maybe more profitable. So the new transition is giving new opportunities to the industry. And it's true. But in one of our discussions, we said that when looking at the opportunities from one side and at the challenges from the other side associated with the twin transition, we need to focus on the human beings. We need to ensure that all processes are still controlled by humans, and they must serve the purposes of humankind. They should not just serve the purposes of the industry or its processes. They should not serve the purpose of making big corporations richer and richer. These new processes must be beneficial to the humankind, and therefore we should strike a social and economic balance. And we need this balance to ensure that every industrial revolution works in our advantage. Right now, we are in the middle of the fifth industrial revolution. So we must ensure that still there is decent work available to the workers. We must ensure workers earn decent wages. And we must, under no circumstances, let jobs be lost, let them disappear. So let me open the discussion now. And I will stop sharing my presentation. And of course, this slide shows what we have covered so far. We have prepared a publication. We're done with the national reports. We have carried out 7 focus group discussions, 1 in each country. We have also held online national workshops, and we have created an e-learning platform. There was also a meeting in Poland of our working group. So there was quite a big range of activities we have covered. But now my question is to you. Are you happy with what we have achieved so far? What can you tell me about the work we have carried out? Could we have done something better? Or what are the conclusions that we could perhaps build on in the next project? Perhaps we could all take part in a new project to elaborate on the twin transition processes, because it is such a complex and far-reaching process. It covers entire regions, countries, industries. What is your view on that? So now I will stop sharing my presentation, and I strongly encourage you to take part in our discussion. Now is the time for us to really speak with each other. I have given an introduction to our discussion, and now I want you to take the floor and tell me what you think. I can see some colleagues from Poland, from Slovakia. We have also our colleagues from Montenegro, Bulgaria, Croatia.
Šta mislite da treba da uradimo sledeće kako bi se
I think that we should perhaps consider what steps we should take now to ensure that the just transition, that the twin transition is just. Milan, the floor is yours.
Evo, vidimo da je Siniša digao ruku, tako da Siniša možete možda vi da počnete.
Rekao sam
I can see that Sinisha has raised his hand, but I believe Milan was first. Sorry, Maya. I would like to give the floor to Milan first, and he will be followed by Sinisha. No, that was just a mistake, but once you have given me the floor, I can, of course, speak. I am so thankful that I've been invited to take part in this project. I believe we have done some meaningful work. We could meet, we could have conversations, and that was the most important part for me. But right now, when I look at what is happening all over the world, I can see that very high tariffs have been imposed. And now the European Union simply needs to react. So we do not only have to deal with the war in Ukraine, but new developments have occurred. There are some financial matters we need to deal with, and the green transition actually needs to wait for a more favorable period of time, because we cannot let it happen that layoffs are underway and employees lose their jobs and then face really difficult problems. So this is my short reflection on what is happening right now. And I believe what we should focus on right now is the current issues, the financial crisis. Otherwise, we will start losing jobs, and this is when our big problems are going to start, not only in Europe. And And if we want to continue talking about the green and digital transition, we have to say we are not fully prepared for that. The digital transition has been implemented, but decarbonization is simply not that easy. And the companies are not embracing it. The company I work for is a steel production company, and we are facing huge problems. And this is all I wanted to say. And this is actually all I wanted to comment on. And this is actually what I believe we should be doing at the European level to just help the companies survive the difficult times. Thank you.
Ja sam imao neka tehnička problema, nadam se da je sad sve u redu.
I'm sorry, I've experienced some technical issues. I hope it's all right now. So if Milan has completed his contribution, then Sinisha, over to you. I just wanted to comment on something you said, that we should be human-centric, that the human being should be at the center of everything. So I'm just curious to know, are the changes going to affect the capital only, or is it going to involve a well thought out policy that will affect the unions, the employers, the companies? We, as trade unions, should always put the human being in the center of everything. It should not be the capital, because all the changes that are taking place right now, which are inevitable, can be carried out in two ways. It should be either capital-centric or human-centric, and I believe it should be human-centric. And how we can do this? We can do it through social dialogue, and you have mentioned that in your contributions. Some of the processes will need to slow down, and we can see that we still have to deal with war. For example, there's also the situation in Sudan, in Middle East. Of course, the problems closer to our region are more painful, but let's not talk about politics right now. It's important for us to ensure that the workers have decent work, safe working environment, fair wage, fair living wage, let me add. And if we stop fighting for that, then of course we will raise productivity, but what for? We can see that the bigger the crisis so far, the richer the rich people are getting. And let's not wait for bad things to happen. We should actually give more wealth to the people who actually manufacture things or provide services, not just the owners that have a company. How can we do this? We will do this through social dialogue. We will not be able to achieve this without a dialogue. If you try to introduce new technologies and digitalize your workplace without a dialogue, it will fail. Let me tell you briefly about the fifth revolution. The artificial intelligence is, of course, important. And maybe I have already mentioned that, but all present inventions were first used to the detriment of the society. That has always happened in the past, and it's easy for us to lose control over that. And who will control artificial intelligence? That is my question. That's all I wanted to say. And over to you, Lazar. Thank you, Sinisha. And thank you for mentioning this aspect that I mentioned, the human-centric approach. And you even explain it better than in my original introduction to this meeting. I fully agree with what you have stated. It's the society that should take things in their own hands. The economy should be made to benefit the society. And we actually act on the basis of an assumption that every partner will be equally involved in all the processes. So what we need now is a new modern trade union that will be knowledgeable about what is going on in the world of labor, in the economy, that will fully know what is going on in the world. And a modern trade union like this can help protect workers' rights, but not only that, because it's not only about retaining jobs on the market. They have a far bigger role to play. We, as the community, as the European Union, as the citizens of the world, we have to find a balance between the economy and the workplaces and the industrial relations. And also, let me refer to what Milan from Slovakia said. Every turbulence happening right now, the bigger tariffs, smaller tariffs, canceled tariffs, everything happening at the same time. And this affects our economies adversely. We can see how the financial markets react, how the stock exchanges react. It's like an earthquake happening at the same time, in parallel to what is the main topic of our project, the twin transition. Twin transition has already started. In addition to that, there is war in Ukraine. On top of that, we have the huge tariffs and the other charges that affect the financial market substantially. And we can see that there are a lot of tensions created as a result. And if we are not wise enough, and if we do not have a vision, everything can happen and change really quickly. We must know how to manage these processes in a sustainable way so that everything is favorable to humans, to citizens, to societies in Europe and all over the world. These are not simple topics, and I agree with Milan that we have chosen a very good topic for our project. We are discussing something that is a very up-to-date matter, and this will be up-to-date also in the future. Okay, anyone, would you like to take the floor, please? Would you like to comment on anything that has been said? Our meeting is streamed on live on YouTube, so please feel free to take the floor. Dimitrova, over to you.
Over to you, Gabriela.
Здравейте, колеги, за мен е удоволствие отново да бъдем заедно. Времето
Good
лита.
morning. Good morning, dear colleagues. It's a good thing to see all of you.
Моят екип
Well,
отделя
the
повече
time
от
flies by. Our project is approaching its end, and I, together with my colleagues from our business chamber in Bulgaria, have produced some interesting results during our research phase. So if you agree, I have prepared a presentation, and I would like to draw your attention in particular to the final part of this presentation. That is recommendations developed on the basis of our research, especially our questionnaire.
Надявам се, че виждате нормално моята презентация. Тя е специално
I
създадена
hope that
за
you can see my presentation. You can see my screen. I have prepared it on purpose for this meeting today. And as our colleagues from other countries, we have developed our report that followed the same structure, the same model, the same template. So we started with an overall presentation of the situation. We carried out a comparative analysis, carried out interviews with experts, and held a focus group meeting. I have to say that the focus group meeting was very, very productive. And indeed, we managed to get some interesting recommendations. First of all, the nature of twin transition from the practical perspective. So we, as representatives of our organization, all of us as members of our community, as well as trade unionists, we have to find our own place, our own role. We have to find our sweet spot in this environment. And in this sweet spot, we'll be able to reach equilibrium, reach some balance. It's difficult. There are many factors that influence this process. Sometimes it may seem helpless, pointless. But let me tell you one thing. Sometimes I assist my young daughter when she's working on a project, for instance, related to the recycling of waste. My daughter is quite creative. She likes making new things. So she can reuse recycled materials. And in this way, we can emphasize the importance of recycling. So my daughter, for instance, prepared such a project on the double use of certain materials, which could be useful. It could be useful to businesses. The materials could be reused, could gain a second life. Okay, let me close the parenthesis and move on to the analysis that we carried out in Bulgaria. We concluded that the Industry 5.0 transition focuses on the human factor. Everything we do must have the ultimate goal of improving our well-being, including the artificial intelligence and all of the other elements engaged in this process. We need to be human-centered. Bulgaria, as a member of the European Union, has the legislation compliant with the EU, including all of the recommendations, details, and so on. So we have already implemented some measures, taken some actions, but some still need to be put in practice. However, we need to find the resources and time to be able to reach the desired effect. As my colleagues have already said, This transition affects many different areas of our economy, of our lives. Green transition does not exist in isolation. We have to approach it globally. As in the case of recycling, can we reuse packaging? What happens to PV panels once they are no longer used? All of these small elements make part of the larger puzzle of the green transition. So, when it comes to the goals of our European green transition, we need to focus on some measurable factors, regardless of whether the trade war is here or not. We need to take care of our planet. We don't want our planet to get sick if it's not sick already. Now let me move on to this digital transition. As I have said before, our country, Bulgaria, is doing its best to implement certain digital transition measures that comply with EU legislation by putting humans first. We focus on the development of technology, but we need to emphasize one thing. We are working for the well-being of people and want to ensure that our economy is dynamic but climate friendly. So we need to find this sweet spot between the two transitions. What have we done? We have carried out interviews with experts from a variety of employees organizations, trade unions. We have talked to trade partners, all of those affected by digitalization. So the goal of our interviews was to collect qualitative information data on their experiences, on the challenges, difficulties they are confronted with, and their suggestions, their proposals regarding active engagement of workers in this process. So we have successfully managed to engage experts from a variety of disciplines as well as representatives of workers and employees alike. They represented different age groups. And because of that, we got a broader range of views. And we also ensured the right distribution of genders. So 60% of our respondents believe that they are sufficiently informed about the Green Deal. They claim that more training is nevertheless needed. 40% still need more information and a broader information campaign. When it comes to the need of consultations between workers and employers in specific companies, our participants were split 50-50. 50% said that yes, consultations are needed, and 30% have said that there has been no consultations on the matter, while only 20% said that yes, the consultation is something that needs to be worked on. Okay, let me now move on to the measures regarding the twin transition. As many as 70% of companies have implemented energy efficiency principles 70% have been also implementing innovation. 60% have had a chance to participate in some kind of a training, acquiring new skills. 40% talked about implementing new technologies in production, and 40% on improving operations aimed at environmental sustainability. It's necessary for us to successfully reach our goals. Now let me move on to other outcomes. So the benefits expected by the respondents. What are the benefits that they expect from the dual transition? 90% expect increased competitiveness. 60% hope to gain new markets and customers. 50% would hope for improved energy efficiency, and 30% to have lower costs. Obviously, over the long term, their costs will get lower. We will get ROI on our investments, even though initially the cost may be high. Well, we have not expected the outcomes we received. What are the challenges? First of all, information. Information that needs to be obviously distributed using correct channels. So as many as 60% of our respondents also mentioned the lack of qualified personnel. 40% mentioned frequently changing rules, legislation, the fact that there is no certainty, no rules, no provisions come up every day, and the companies do not know the requirements, reporting requirements they'll be forced to meet. And finally, high costs of innovation. So as I have mentioned, we also held a focus group meeting. It was held online. We invited experts from a variety of target groups. Now, the key goal was to gather comments, opinions regarding twin transition. Experts shared the personal professional experiences, which was very useful for us to come up with recommendations. I am certain that also in your case, such recommendations were included in your national reports. Let me highlight a few of our conclusions. Focus on people, regional positioning. People are the most important element because they ensure that the ultimate goals of the twin transition can be achieved. All of the functions, aspects of the green transition focus on people. Well, regardless of whether we are talking about a specific organization, company, community, society as such, the rights, the benefits that they may derive from this process, everything in the end focuses on humans. Let me move on to the next recommendation. Regional positioning. So we have our national report. We have some natural resources, certain ecosystems, and our goal is to protect them. We want to protect them so that every region can meet its goals. Nevertheless, we need to work together as a team to get the results that we want. We have also added recommendations that are recommendations based on our interviews. So, to conclude, let me tell you, that all of the workers should be engaged in decision making, but not only in the context of twin transition, which obviously is crucial. They should participate in social dialogue. They should build on their existing knowledge, improve their skills, competences. We also have some recommendations for employers. They refer to environmental protection, but workers need to know, they need to know specifically what they're supposed to do, and they should be able to make their own proposals. It's important to focus on consultations, to work together. So this is the key conclusion from myself. Thank you for your attention. Sorry for going so much into details, but I really wanted to share the outcomes of what we have done as the Bulgarian Industrial Chamber. Thank you.
Zahvaljujem, gospođa Dimitrova. Merci. Благодаря.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Gabriela.
Тръгнете само... Merci. Презентацията да я...
Thank you for your presentation.
Stop sharing. Отлично.
Okay, right. You are no longer sharing your screen. This is perfect.
Vrlo интересантну презентацию. По моему видению.
Gabriela shared with us some very interesting results. I believe that we can conclude that your recommendations, your conclusions are in line with ours, mine and Sinisha's. All of the transition processes, be it the Green Deal or the digital transition, must be human-oriented. Our partners from Bulgaria proposed a very holistic approach to this analysis and to the national report. What they have demonstrated is that the process must be humanistic in nature. So, what I mean is that all of the parties need to buy in. It's not easy. I do agree with that. I do agree with you, Gabriela, that it might be a challenge, a huge challenge, but there is no other way. This is the only way. I think that the project goes in this direction and it shows us this paradigm. Transition must be implemented in a way acceptable to all, which is a challenge, obviously. So thank you to Mrs. Dimitrova. And I believe that we still have some time before the break. So I wanted to ask you if there's anybody else who would like to say something about the national report or just generally join our discussion. We have colleagues from Poland, from Montenegro, Croatia. The floor is yours. Okay, if you have prepared something, especially if you have a presentation, I invite you to share it with us. Maybe colleagues from Poland would like to add something. It's not a workshop, it's just an open discussion. May I?
Dzień dobry, witam serdecznie. Może ja zacznę z polskiej, bo widzę, że już mamy bardzo duże...
Okay, thank you very much. We have a lot of members from Poland to welcome Maciej, Dozia, Piotr, Mirosław. So maybe I will start and you may add something later on. So it has been a year and 22 days since we have met during our focus group. Well, the world has been changing so quickly. It's a lot of time that has passed. So I will not discuss our report in detail. We are engaged in a similar project, touching upon similar aspects of the transitions that are in progress right now. And the key recommendations that keep coming up would be the following. They would focus on three different things. First of all, the change is underway. It's not something we can stop. We can't slow it down. We can't ignore it when it comes to energy transition, digital transition, climate change, crisis response, especially in the context of geopolitical circumstances. All of us agree that in this environment we need a roadmap. We need to set the tone for the changes and have a strategy rather than just spontaneously react to specific challenges. So the first group of recommendations usually concern a clear strategy and a clear roadmap for the green transition, digital transition. And when it comes to these topics, I believe that the digital transition is perceived as the most developed, both by experts, workers, employers. So when it comes to digitalization, it is proceeding in Poland as planned. With regard to climate or energy transition, we do not have, at least in Poland, a clear energy and climate plan. This document keeps being updated. It is being consulted, but it is not yet ready. And the document related executive provisions are not ready. So everybody is waiting for it. It's necessary to develop the industrial strategy, for instance. And then the second group of recommendations. All of the changes, all of the strategies need to take into account the protection of jobs. But the protection of jobs does not only entail a protection of a single job at a single sector or a single company, but if we need to close down a sector or an area of the economy or wind down a certain number of jobs, then we need to create the same number of jobs for a similar pay of similar quality in the same region. This is something that is being really emphasized. We actually talked about it yesterday, that we need to stimulate the economy in the sectors where we expect the traditional industry sector elements, for instance, coal mines or coal plants to close down. And the third group is about supporting national industry and the protection of competitiveness. These are the recommendations that keep coming up in our projects. But going back to what I said initially, we have said that maybe the green transition will slow down and we'll need to wait for better times because now we have bigger challenges ahead. I think it can't wait for many different reasons. First of all, it is a response to the climate crisis. The sooner we respond, the smaller the effects will be, the effects that are already perceptible by our residents, our communities, our societies, by the agriculture. We can feel it. It is happening. So we can't wait. And we can't also wait for economic reasons. This process is already underway. And by procrastinating, we will simply become less competitive. And I keep thinking talking to different people, that whenever a change is underway, you can approach it in many different ways. So you can negate it, you can negate it, you can refuse to accept it, and that's sort of one end of the spectrum. And on the other hand, you can shape it, you can set the direction of it. So I believe that what's much better for our industry is for us to set the direction, set the tone for the change, because it is difficult to set the direction of a process if you are trying to stop it. So it's a strategy that has not brought a lot of benefits to us up to this point and will not do so in the future. So I'm looking at my notes, but I wouldn't like to take too much of your time. Yes, so I can see that Yelena is raising her hand, so maybe I will stop at this point and go back to this topic if necessary, but also if any of my colleagues from Poland would like to add something, go ahead. But now, Yelena, over to you.
Thank you very much, Alexandra. Thank you for your comments. Thanks for sharing this with us. We know that the green transition is something we need. And it's like you said, we cannot postpone it. It will be just wasting our time. This is a process which can no longer be stopped. Thank you very much for your opinion. And we will talk about this more, I believe, today. But I can see that Yelena would like to take the floor now. Thank you very much, Professor, for giving me the floor. Thank you, Alexandra, for your remarks. I just want to say that I agree fully with what Alexandra told us. But also, I've listened carefully to every speaker today, and I agree with you, dear colleagues. As Sinisha said, we need social dialogue. Without informing the workers and without keeping the processes transparent, we will simply fail. We, as the trade unions and employee representatives, have observed so far that the employers are quite reluctant to inform us about new technologies and new processes, let alone consult them with us. At least this is what is happening in Montenegro. Our social dialogue is not that well developed. For us, it is going to be a huge challenge. When new processes and technologies are being implemented, that's tough. The trade unions and workers simply must be informed about the new changes. And so far, what we have seen on the market, if we do not demand information, we're not getting it. If we don't make the partners aware that without us, these processes won't simply happen, won't take place. The other side, the other partners, will simply not want to include us. They will not stretch out a hand to us. This has been done so far. They have never made any gestures of that kind in the past. We have carried out focus group discussions in our country, and we have reached some recommendations, of course. And I agree with the recommendations that have already been mentioned here. And I agree that all the processes need to be human-centric or worker-centric. But also, in addition to that, we believe that education is important. We, as trade unions, are fully aware of what just transition entails and what our role in it is. And for some time now, we have been partners to projects such as this one. So we have started informing ourselves and learning, and we pass on the information to our colleagues. What I must say, regrettably, is that this process is quite slow. But we need to work on that to be better in the future. We need to know exactly what transition, just transition means, and what these three different processes involve, and what our role in them is. Without that, we won't be able to take an active role if we do not have sufficient knowledge and information. Also, Alexandra mentioned that the digital transition is quite well developed in Poland. This is the same in Montenegro as well. But for example, this morning I struggled with my broadband connection, so not everything as it should be. Some obstacles are there, and the technology sometimes fails us. It makes it or more justified to say that all processes must be human-centric. We should have the final say. As trade unionists, we must always be involved. Without that, we won't make any progress. I also want to make an appeal. We, as trade unions, must be pushy, must elbow our way in all these processes to be heard and to be involved. Well, we of course have other duties that we need to tend to, and there are also some struggles we have, for example, protecting the workers' rights. But in spite of all this, we need to push, because these problems, they might seem like they're distant and peripheral, but they are not. They are very, very relevant to our situation. And thank you for having us in this project. And we hope to partner with you in future projects as well. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Jelena, for your contribution. And thank you for these conclusions you shared with us. You have briefly told us about the recommendations from your country. You have also told us about the situation in Montenegro, and we have discussed that in our previous meetings. I have made a note of the challenges facing the trade unions that are associated with the twin transition. So sometimes we do not know all these processes taking place in the background. But these processes can open up new opportunities. And perhaps we will be able to work on a new project together. And we could perhaps engage in workshops and other educational activities to keep people informed, to enlighten them, because it's true for all the countries. It's the same as in Bulgaria. We have heard from our colleague from Bulgaria that we need education, that also workers must be informed. That's the first step. Then consultation is the second step. And what comes next is active employee participation in decision making. Also, workers must be involved in every activity happening at the company. This new activity proposed must go through the filter of trade unions. And I can see that Maciej Plutecki has raised his hand. Over to you, Maciej. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sorry for my delay. I actually joined the meeting from my car, but it was very difficult to drive and take part in a meeting. I wanted to draw your attention to an important component, and this is a variable component. And for Poland, it could even be a game changer. And it, of course, relates to the transition. So the industry is transforming. It is going to function in a different way. But we are in a certain geopolitical situation. We are threatened by any form of hostility because we are so close to the war zone. That's why the transition in Poland will be affected by this. And our industry will need to develop in certain areas. In practice, this will mean that we will not be able to change our sources of energy overnight very quickly. So please bear this in mind, and I want you to be aware of that we are in a specific geopolitical situation and location, and sometimes this situation is not in our own hands. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Maciej, for your contribution. This conclusion you shared with us is quite vital. You must, in your country, look at the twin transition through this geopolitical lens, because it's for you, it is an additional context. And we can perhaps discuss this even here. If I understood you correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, twin transition in your country is also affected by political turbulences, volatilities. So it's not immune to the challenges that Europe and the world are facing. Of course, Europe is a big player and has an effect on the global politics. And what you are saying is that twin transition can be affected by geopolitical factors, because new situations are created all over the world. Mr. Milan and Mr. Kosic also said something to the same effect, that twin transition can even slow down. However, Alexandra from Poland stated that you won't be able to stop the process because that process has started and there is no going back. And I agree with that personally. I believe that the geopolitical factors do play a role, but the processes cannot be stopped altogether. It's simply impossible. It would be wrong for us to believe that these processes can be stopped. But it is true that everyone approaches these challenges in a different way, because your country is in a certain political and economic situation. The war has lasted for over 3 years now. And there are also the new tariffs imposed. There are financial challenges on the market. And I know these factors affect what is happening in our countries. And also our colleague from the Montenegro mentioned that as well. And the way we handle those challenges will differ depending on our political and economic context. Nevertheless, the social partners must always be in a dialogue and they must speak with each other. But I mustn't speak that much. I want to leave some space for you to discuss. Will I get any more volunteers? Our colleagues from Slovakia have not spoken yet.
Dobro, ako je tako, onda ćemo da napravimo jednu kratku pauzu od pola sata.
No volunteers. Then perhaps let's take a break now for half an hour, and at 12 o'clock you will receive more information from me, and then we'll have another discussion. And then our meeting will be concluded. So our break starts now, and we will meet again at 12 o'clock at noon.
I will be speaking in Croatian and Montenegrin. I would like to thank all of the colleagues who participated in our discussion during the morning session of our meeting. Well, you touched upon some fundamental questions inherent to the twin transition. You also shared with us some observations typical of your countries. And as a rule, this is something we should discuss. We should talk about the current state of affairs and support each other so that we are the most productive possible, both at the national level and at the regional level. We have learned something about good practices in our countries. So my conclusion is the following. All of the partner states in this project has encountered, in a way, certain challenges on specific levels, regardless of whether we talk about the Green Deal or the twin transition. So the two transformation processes happening at the very same time. It varies from country to country, but generally speaking, our partner states are facing certain challenges. These challenges obviously differ from country to country. So, I wanted to start a discussion on yet another topic. So, very briefly, I would like to share with you the presentation that I have prepared. This presentation concerns collaboration between different partners. It's something that you have already mentioned. As a rule, without collaboration, this process will not be strong enough. If we are not open to accept social dialogue as a path in our green transition and in the twin transition, the process will not work. It will not work if we don't act in good faith. The outcomes will not be good, and the entire process will either slow down or we will commit errors that will need to be corrected later on, and as a result, we will lose precious time. So, why is collaboration so important? Why is it crucial? It is so because social partners, and here I'm referring to employees' organizations, trade unions, and government authorities or the government on its own, they play a critical role when it comes to guiding this process. If one of the partners is missing, this process cannot go ahead. So, collaboration and dialogue are key. We need to keep workers engaged. We need to keep them engaged with regard to social policies, industrial practices that are crucial. This will enable the industry to adapt to the current situation and will also improve the chances of us adopting to the new job market. So what are the crucial areas of collaboration? First of all, policy development. So I'm referring here to social and economic policies in particular, something that our colleague has discussed also before.
Oprostite, to sam zaboravio da stavim polni ekran. Tako da
Sorry, I forgot about something.
trening je isto tako nužan kako bi se mogao proces odvijati bez
Let me move on to training. When it comes to training and upskilling, this is a process that must go ahead smoothly. So we need to coordinate the education efforts of workers, of employers, with regard to the skills needed for the green and digital jobs. As a colleague has mentioned, in Slovakia, in other countries, the process of green transition itself and of twin transition as such needs to go hand in hand with informing workers. The information needs to be of high quality. Once the information is transformed into knowledge, we have built the ground, the basis for consultation. And then, in turn, consultation should lead to joint decision making within social dialogue at the national level. So the same applies to employers. And I'm not referring only to the context of collective bargaining. When it comes to trade unions, this is something that applies not only to specific companies, but to entire sectors. And the three areas of collaboration obviously contain this third element, that is social dialogue. So bargaining, negotiations, it's a very useful tool. And this tool can help us overcome problems inherent to the transition process. Collective agreements are an important instrument, but to what extent they are used, well, it depends on the country. Some countries have a strong tradition when it comes to collective bargaining, whereas other countries are characterized by a weaker collective bargaining process, and the industrial relations and collective bargaining itself work a little bit differently. I have to say that social dialogue and collective bargaining are typical of some states such as Austria, Germany, Sweden, Norway. But they are also widespread in Spain and in Italy. However, in other countries, social dialogue is not as well developed as in Austria or Germany. So Germany, Austria have a very strong collective bargaining system, which is a source of inspiration for other European countries. So let me add a couple of words on the topic before we move on. What are the key benefits of social dialogue? when it comes to the collaboration and what are the challenges that the social partners are facing in the process of problem resolution, obviously in the context of the twin transition. You have already identified certain problems in your presentations, but here I have outlined 3 key benefits. First of all, the transition is more inclusive. If transition is more inclusive, all sectors and all workers can equally benefit from the outcome of the work. So everybody's happy, or equally unhappy because of certain developments. So, in some cases, you need to reach a compromise. In consultations, in negotiations with partners, compromise is what matters. Some people define compromise as a situation where nobody is happy. If everybody is a little bit unhappy, it means that the outcome is good. Obviously, it is a situation that may happen. So this twin transition should be based on a foundation that takes into account the interests of the various social partners. So both workers and employers need to follow the same path, but may have divergent interests. And it is often the case that conflicts of interest emerge. So the process itself, the process of inclusivity, the use of collective bargaining, the use of collective agreements is a way for us to improve the twin transition and its implementation. Then, let me move on to the next point. Something we have been working on within our project dedicated to twin transition. It's a process that will continue. So, our goal is not to reach a specific objective. There is a further road ahead. It's a process that will continue, that will last a long time, and its final outcome, it's unknown. Nobody can tell when it will be over. Nobody will give us a specific date. We might say that it is over once all of us requalify, or once people are substituted with machines, artificial intelligence. It's impossible to say. So we do not have an illusion of following certain goal, of having a finish line that's well defined. There's still a lot that lays ahead of us. We're identifying some new objectives, interim, partial objectives. And one important aspect of it all is economic stability. And it must be approached from 2 different points of view. First of all, the protection of jobs, preservation of jobs. And on the other hand, decent pay, just pay. These are the objectives of workers, but from the point of view of employers, for them, what matters is to keep the company going and to ensure that it is productive. So growing capital and getting bigger and stronger. On the other hand, yet, from the perspective of the government, in my opinion, the state should intervene as little as possible in business relations. There should be a framework within which this process is being implemented, whereas workers and employers are the ones who effect change at their own discretion. Please don't misunderstand me. The state needs to be involved, but it should not be the case that it is the key actor defining the rules, as the effect may not be desirable. Sometimes the state interferes too much with some business processes. Once again, we are going back to the idea that the process should be inclusive. So, we should ensure that the outcomes of the twin transition are as good as possible. So, we have also discussed challenges. This is something that you identified in your national reports. And let me now list 3 basic challenges that have come up. First of all, the different priorities of social partners. Employers have their own priorities, workers their own priorities, and yet the state has its own. Sometimes what we need is the wisdom and this ability, the skill of bringing everything to a common conclusion. It's a challenge. It's a challenge, something we could observe in the report from Bulgaria, something that our colleague from Montenegro emphasized. Sometimes trade unions initiate a discussion and employers are looking at it from the sidelines. They do not treat it as a priority to be engaged in the process of information sharing and consultation with workers. So the differences of priorities. This is the first challenge. Challenge number 2. How to overcome reluctance, resistance to change. So the industrial process itself, this process is created by people. It has its character, it has its nature. It's not only an economic relationship, work, employment relationship is also a psychological, social relationship. We are dealing with different character traits, social and psychological aspects, challenges, or some individual features. Such features may destabilize the entire system. And our analysis have shown that as a rule, the reason for these problems are the people. Sometimes these are the trade unions that are resistant, but sometimes there are employers who are resistant to change as well. And when it comes to the decision-making politicians, sometimes they don't understand the process, sometimes they are not ready to accept it and put it into practice. So there are many different aspects that are inherent to this specific challenge. It's a huge challenge. It cannot be overlooked because the people are the ones that develop processes, that implement the processes, and they have a vision of how the transition should be completed, should be put into practice.
And the last challenge I want to speak about is about ensuring that every participant has a seat at the table. And when I say the table, I mean the decision-making process. And this was also one of the challenges identified by this project. We have come to this conclusion, and you said it in your reports and in your statements. It's vitally important that every partner to the social dialogue, including the trade unions, the state, the employers, and all the associated organizations, are involved in the discussion. Their voice must be heard. Every draft solution has to be discussed among the partners, and the best way forward has to be found to ensure that transformation, that transition is just. That's actually all I wanted to say. I actually wanted to share with you some conclusions we have come to as part of our analyses. As one of the colleagues said, this project has already taken 1 year of our time, and this has been full of intensive work and efforts. So this concludes my brief presentation, and now I am opening a discussion. And I would like us to discuss the practical recommendations for implementation as regards the twin transition. I want us to come up with recommendations to our colleagues, to our members, to our organizations. What would you recommend them to do? What would you recommend to the governments? What sort of twin transition policies should governments pursue in the future? And I will now stop sharing my presentation. I would like to encourage you to now give me your recommendations. The floor is yours. Sinisha, I can see that you want to speak first. I just have a few comments to make, and I want to give you my viewpoint. I understand and I agree that this process is still underway. Actually, our society, our community undergoes changes all the time. The steam engine, then electricity, and now it's the digital transition. In the future, there will be other changes implemented. So the humankind, the human beings are evolving all the time. Are all these changes positive? Not always, but we will always choose a certain path. And this path has so far helped us survive huge wars, huge turbulences. And sometimes we have made bad decisions, but we have survived in spite of those. We can go through this transition period and benefit from it if you have good education. I remember my time at the high school, and the curriculum hasn't changed for years. And nowadays, you have to change the curricula every year. You have to adapt them to accommodate the changing needs. We need well-educated people at companies. Only then this transition will be able to move forward. And also, we do not want the employers to just go ahead with their changes and with their new projects without informing us, without consulting with us. Of course, there is some mental burden we have to deal with as a result of the transition processes, but we will not stop the transition. It will continue, and we will need to work hand in hand with the employers to ensure it's beneficial to us. And also the state must be present in these processes, because we are all convinced we want to do it in the best possible way. Without development, actually, without moving forward, we are going backwards, and we do not want that, do we? And that's all I wanted to say. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, dear Sinisha, for sharing these remarks with us.
Vrlo jedan važan segment koji si ti dotakao u odnosu na
you have said a very important thing. The recommendation you have given is very crucial. And let me rephrase what you have said. So people need to be aware. They need to be certain what's going on. With this twin transition, if it's unknown, if we have no knowledge about it, if we are largely unaware of all these processes happening all around us, we are going to resist. We are going to oppose it, or we will have some prejudices, and we will resort to stereotypes that feel comfortable to us.
Siniša je dao vrlo dobru poentu, a to je da sam obrazovni sistem.
We want to avoid that. The education system should be changed to help us achieve that. The quality of education must be good, so that all these processes run smoothly. Thank you very much, Sinisha. Would anyone else like to add something to our discussion? What would you like to share with us, dear colleagues? What recommendations would you give to your colleagues, to the government, to other associations? Go ahead. What kind of advice do you have? We're no longer talking about conclusions, and because we have covered that part before the break. Right now, we want to formulate some recommendations, good pieces of advice. Piotr, over to you. Thank you very much for giving me the floor. Hello, everyone. I'm sorry I was late a bit because I was in a different meeting. We've had a protest. And let me share with you that it's difficult to anticipate the changes that are associated with the transition. All these processes must be transparent. Otherwise, everyone will simply misunderstood and there will be no communication. And all the information that is passed on must be consistent. The information that flows from the government to the employers, to the trade unions. If there is a disruption in the information flow, the transition will slow down. The processes will slow down. Let me also draw your attention to the new technologies that have not yet been accepted as part of the transition. So instead of using uranium, we could be using Tor. And there is a myriad of technologies which could be profitable for businesses. So perhaps we could think about the barriers that hamper the development of companies. If a company doesn't thrive, doesn't develop, it's a huge problem for the workforce as well. And then, of course, all the processes slow down. Like Sinisha said, a transition is development. We all want to develop, everyone. And what is the cost of the development? What is the personnel cost? What is the cost of labor? Because this is what worries us. This is what keeps us awake at night. Because we don't know what form the transition will take. We cannot anticipate this really well. We do not know the tangible effects the transition will have on us. If we knew that, that would be a great value for all of us. Thank you very much. Yes, indeed. Thank you very much, Piotr. And I agree with you. It has been a very good conclusion.
Svodi se na to da, tačno je, mora da se zna da ima određena izvesnost, ali da bi se to postiglo, kao što ste rekli, vrlo je važno da se
I
otvori
believe
proces.
that we need a certain degree of certainty of what is coming. And also we need greater transparency in these processes. And in order to achieve that, we need conversations to make things clear, to find out what next steps are involved. Okay, Mirosław from Poland, over to you. Dear colleagues, hello. I just wanted to add something to what Piotr said and also share my thoughts with you. Just transition for our colleagues in energy-intensive industries, such as the processing industry and in mining, usually means layoffs, usually means redundancies, lack of prospects, and the possibility for some companies to close down. And of course, some processes are underway. There is, of course, progress to which we have to adapt and with which we have to keep up. But for the time being, we are still struggling. People are afraid. People are worried. The transition should be just, as the title of our project is, but it is not always just, and it's not always beneficial for all the players. For the time being, we are trying to defend workplaces and we are trying to pass on the information to the workforce. And of course, it's possible to keep up with the progress, but that comes at a cost. And there are quite a lot of changes happening right now. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mirosław, for sharing with us your point of view. The issues you have mentioned, oh yes, we have talked about them both today and in our previous meetings, and I completely agree with you on these topics you mentioned. In principle, a just transition is possible, it's achievable. However, we have come to three different conclusions as far as just transition is concerned. And some of them relate to the trade unions, others to the government, and still others to the employers. I believe we will still talk about these topics today. And now, Zuzana from Slovakia, over to you. Hello, everyone. Happy to see you. Unfortunately, we do not know each other that well. I was not able to come to the meeting in Krakow. It was my boss who came. I'm here on behalf of a trade union, Kovo Metal. We mostly operate in the steelmaking industry, but we also bring together representatives from other heavy industry branches. Most of our members are from US Steel Košice. I would like to share with you my comments. Not many sectors in the industry have suffered so much as the steelmaking industry. In the last 10 years, the companies operating in this sector simply couldn't thrive. They were impacted by the crises, by the soaring energy prices, which they need for their production, of course, by the very strict regulations to protect the environment, influx of cheap products from China, with which you cannot really compete. And on top of that, some pressure to bring down the prices of our products. We are also experiencing some difficulties with recycling our scraps. And the margins have actually deteriorated over the years, and our revenue has also dropped. I would like to give you a comparison between two companies. One is located in Orava. It makes simple products for US Steel Košice, a behemoth company. And that plant in Orava has a smaller workforce, and they do not have any access to international funding, and also implements fewer projects in the area of twin transition. And all the time they are struggling with the lack of funding. And because the energy prices are growing, this company had to lay off people. 80% of the workforce was actually sacked. US Steel Košice sacked 36% of their workforce, but it was not a process of redundancies. And they simply laid off people over a certain period of time. They dismissed people close to their retirement age, and also some of the workforce chose to leave voluntarily. And the workers and trade union members are always actively involved in projects in the area of digitalization and decarbonization. And thanks to that, that company is profitable. And over the last 3 years, it was the most profitable company of that kind in Slovakia. Compared to other businesses in this industry, it is in a far better situation. The plant in Orava had to actually relocate their production to third countries outside of the EU. They are thinking about possibly relocating it to Uzbekistan, where the costs are 1/3 of what they have to pay in Slovakia. And unfortunately, this policy will cause further layoffs. I think that the European Union will not be a leader unless it changes its internal policies. If the European Union wants to be a role model, it must definitely change its recommendations. it is unclear yet how fast the companies need to implement changes and how ambitious the EU targets will be. Of course, there is this difference between the countries in the West and countries in the East. The ones in the West are more progressive, more advanced. The countries in the East have already recognized that it won't be easy to implement the European Green Deal in their countries because their economies depend on the fossil fuels and on heavy industry. And there are some arguments against the green transition. And one of them is that our competitiveness in the global markets will suffer as a result, and that our social situation and economic situation will become worse simply, and that job losses are inevitable. We know that there is a special fund established by the European Union, and it's available to 10 countries, 10 member states that will be affected the most when implementing the EU climate targets. And we know this from employer organizations. And 11 million workplaces will be affected. And it's a huge number of people in the European Union that will be affected. The European Union wants to build an added value industry with the latest technologies, but it won't be that easy because we will need aluminum, we will need copper, we will need other resources to be able to manufacture these very modern cars. We can establish a plant in every village, but without resources and raw materials, we will end up with just empty production halls. What I also want to say is that we should be conscious of the economic effect. Every product manufactured in the EU will be less burdensome on the environment than anything manufactured outside of the EU. So we want to manufacture things internally, but if we can't do it, we will have to import goods from abroad, from other countries. In Europe, we try to be more and more green. And that's why sometimes we decommission plants, we close down companies. And what we will end up doing is that we will import pollution from abroad, from outside of the EU borders. And the EU should definitely be aware of that.
Zahvaljujem i ja vama, draga Suzana, na vašu diskusiju.
Thank you very much, Zuzana. Thank you for the information. Thank you for the recommendation to implement some changes at the EU level with regard to decision-making on these matters. Thank you for the recommendations on what should be done if the European Union wants to be a leader of this process. I believe that your conclusions are very interesting and relevant to the topic of our projects, so the things that we have been working on for a year and some. So thank you very much once again. Now Milan from Slovakia is also raising his hand, so the floor is yours. Thank you. Thank you very much, Lazar. Let me just add something to what has already been said. What should yet be done? Unfortunately, Milan has his mic off, so we can't hear him. Okay, it's back on.
Takže môžeme. Ďakujem pekne za slovo. Takže tá spolupráca by mala
Thank you very much for giving me the floor and giving me the chance to speak. I wanted to say that trade unions should collaborate with the government, should pass on the information also. Twin transition is in progress. We have already said that everything depends on money. The costs incurred by businesses are very high. So I wanted to add something that's relevant to practically every single country. Every country has some businesses, some companies that are the biggest pollutant, that produce the biggest quantities of CO2. In our case, these are the steel plants in Košice, and then companies that produce fertilizers, aluminium, that process crude oil, and so on. The first 20 biggest polluters also include the producers of calcium metal products, as well as glass fiber, as well as electricity and heat from biomass. So in every state, there are companies that produce the highest quantities of CO2. In the European Union, we have a program that's supposed to deal with this problem. But we should ask ourselves where CO2 emissions could be reduced. I have already listed the biggest pollutants as of the moment. They need money. They need financing. The EU, within its projects aimed at reducing CO2 emissions, could provide funds for these companies to implement some projects that would enable them to preserve the workforce. On top of that, workers must be trained. This is the next thing that must be done. And that's all from myself.
Se i vama, gospodine Milane.
Thank you very much, Milan. You gave us two important recommendations. So financial support, which is much needed. All of us who participate in this project know that finances are very important. We, in the academia, are always reminded of this fact whenever we need money to carry out some action. So politicians say that this or that reform is needed, but money is one of the crucial factors necessary when it comes to the implementation of the transition itself. And obviously education that you have mentioned, it is a recommendation that keeps coming up in our project, and it's not only Milan who has mentioned this fact, but also other people. It came up during our previous meetings that as a rule, people need to be informed, need to be trained, they need to know what is happening and what this entire transition is about. So these problems, these challenges should be explained in an appropriate way. Okay, this is our final meeting. We are slowly approaching the end of our project, which didn't last long, but it was packed with actions, products, deliverables that we have produced. We have documents, we will still have other measures, other activities available online. There are still documents that will be shared with social partners. But what I can say is that our project consisted of several important points. All of the partners worked together, educated themselves, and they shared information that can be implemented nationally or in specific institutions, including trade unions. So, some information will be disseminated, obviously using appropriate channels. Secondly, we shared our experiences, our negative experiences also. We listened to each other, and it has helped us through this transition. So we are in a growing up phase. It is some sort of accelerated puberty. We could see how this process is coming along in many countries. We are not alone in that. We are not alone in this transition. Colleagues from other states are dealing with similar challenges. And number three, what's equally important, we have developed certain deliverables that will help us. First of all, an analysis and a platform. They will provide us with some tools and with assistance when it comes to understanding what is happening in different areas. So taking into account the time framework that we had to fit into, as well as certain aspects we decided to include. We now have some tools of support for us as workers, employers, and for other social partners. So our project produced a lot of positive outcomes. But I do not want to take your space. So maybe at the end of our meeting, there is somebody who would like to share with us with some final conclusions that they have developed. So I encourage you to take the floor, and maybe in 5-10 minutes we will be calling it a day and winding up. So if there is anybody else who would like to speak, please go ahead. The floor is yours. Okay, I can see Gabriela from Bulgaria raising her hand. Gabriela Dimitrova. Yes, Gabriela. Yes, over to you.
За обобщението, както и на колегите, които споделиха.
Thank you very much to you, to the colleagues who have participated in our discussion. I would like to say that I share this general view. There are many things that still need to be done. We need more dialogue. We are trying. We are trying, and let me give you an example from Bulgaria, a successful example where workers and employers hold daily meetings. We talk, we sometimes quarrel. We quarrel if we have to, but our basic objective is to ensure the dialogue is on and it is used to find solutions. So what we need is dialogue, and it's applicable to all areas of our lives, especially the economy, but not only, and especially not only the twin transition. I don't know if you agree with me, but bilateral communication is the key. On the other hand, what is important to us is that we have stable energy supply. Everybody's doing something more or less significant, contributing to the future, but we all need enough energy. It is important for us to get to the finish line successfully. Our Chamber of Commerce and Industry has been engaged in a number of European projects. I'm not going to list them at this point because these are details, but most of these projects require from us effort in the area of educating workers, digitization, as well as ensuring that workers that have been laid off may re-enter the market successfully. But the key point is to ensure that our lives are more successful and easier. And this is something I would like to leave you with at the end of our today's meeting. Yes, I agree that these conclusions are very important. So I'd like to thank Mrs. Dimitrova at the very end. So, to close up, in the spirit of this synergy, I wanted to emphasize something that's typical of Bulgaria and Bulgarian society. The parliament building bears the following text. Force in unity. So I believe that this unity of the three partners is fully compliant with this maxim. So united, we are stronger. We are stronger when it comes to overcoming the challenges inherent to twin transition, so that this transition is just. I have nothing else to add. Has anybody else have something to add? Something to close our meeting. Okay. So let me just say thank you. Thank you for your trust. I'd like to thank trade unions from our partner countries. I wanted to thank all of the partners for their participation in this project. We have completed all of the actions. We have satisfied all of the requirements. Maybe Maya will tell us if there's anything left when it comes to technical perspective. So I wanted to thank you for everything and let me wish you happy Easter. All of us this year celebrate Easter on the same dates. The Easter day in Bulgaria, Macedonia, Croatia fall on the same day this year. So a lot of love, a lot of success so that we can achieve even better results in the upcoming projects. So we will continue to work, we will work even better than so far. So now let me hand over the mic to Sinisha, our host.
Samo mikrofon, Siniša, mikrofon, molim vas. Mikrofon, Siniša.
Siniša, mikrofon. Oprostite. Htio sam reći...
I do apologize. Yes, I wanted to say something. I wanted to say that united we are stronger. This is crucial for companies, societies, communities and states, but also at the EU level, at the level of the EU community. Unfortunately, Europe is not behaving as one, but as several people, but that will not stop the green transition. For us, what counts is education and dialogue. That will make the transition easier. Now, I want to thank all of you for your engagement, for your participation. I believe our project has been successfully led. I am very sad that we have not met in person, that all of the meetings were held online. Well, but it is sometimes the case. So I do hope to see you in person at some point in the future. Or we will collaborate individually with each other. So once again, all the best and thank you on behalf of the Trade Union of Workers in Croatia and myself. I believe all of us have done the best in this project and see you next time. I think that we worked very well. So once again, have a great day and thank you. Goodbye.
И аз благодаря, както винаги си невероятен.
Yes, sorry.
Не смогваш на скоростта.
Hvala, Gabriela. Čekali smo prijevod, uključili smo se svi u istom trenutku.
Okay, so I believe that all of us turned on the mics on the same way. I would like to say thank you to Lazar.
Samo malko da završi Maja.
Bilo mi je zadovoljstvo da radim sa svima. Što se kaže, projekat je prošao.
I am very pleased to say that I've had the pleasure to work with all of you. Our project proceeded in such a smooth way. Everybody completed the task on time, worked together. And as Lazar has said, there are still some actions that lay ahead. First of all, the dissemination of information. There is still one article, international article, that will be published on an international platform, and there are still some documents that will be added to the website. You will get the links. We also have a Facebook profile and a publication that has been printed. So the entire process of dissemination is still ahead. Thank you, Lazar, for the information that you have shared with us, for everything that you have contributed to this project. If you have any questions, I remain at your disposal. And I hope to see you again in other projects. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Have a great day. Goodbye.
Yeah.